taught it, like, how many times so far? Quite a few times.
I think it's spelled in twice as a direct, but like a direct teach.
And it's been on every district assessment, like at least.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's like it's one of our probably lower performing teams
Yes.
too, because it's one of the hardest skills.
And some of the questions will be, it'll say, read the dictionary entry for this word, what is the meaning?
Oh,
Yeah.
dictionaries. We've done a count of how many we have. We'd like to have them one-to-one, like where each kid has one that they can use. Right now, once they're dispersed with departmentalized and stuff, I think it comes out to like two kids to one dictionary. So we would like to be able to, for each kid to have their own just to get that practice. But I just thought about that. I've been meaning to tell you. I'm going to put the teak here. Mm-hmm.
Do you want to write an objective for 3.4B?
Yeah, let's do it. Here, the way I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna put a collection actually of them. As we write objectives, I'm gonna do a new Google Doc in the planning folder so that we can kind of have a pool and we'll have them in order there. And then next year, we should be able to just go to them. So then we'll do 3.4B objective. So this specific teak is multiple meaning words and homographs.
And that critique is being asked in multiple ways as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's another.
Because that's where the dictionary meaning comes in.
Mm-hmm.
It could be to look at dictionary meanings and determine which one was the right meaning.
Synonyms, antonyms as well.
Well, see, antonyms and synonyms are a separate teak. It's 3.4C, so it's still under the 3.4 umbrella, but it's, so I don't know.
But that's part of what we're doing. I mean, so basically our focus is on context clues as a whole. So I would write one objective for both these teaks because, I mean, honestly, we're going to be addressing both together. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's basically either saying, look at the dictionary or look at this word in the text and what does it mean.
Exactly.
Yeah, because it's not the same as synonyms and antonyms. It's really not. 3.4B is quite a bit different than using synonyms and antonyms to determine meaning.
True, but we've already covered those, so when we revisit, we're just going to talk about context and the kids have to figure out what they're going to use. Does that make sense?
The only thing is that there's the 3.4B, it's either going to be a dictionary definition or a homograph. The other types of context clues like synonyms, antonyms, description, those are what they have to apply just as good readers in general. But this specific 3.4B is using dictionary meanings and homographs. So I feel like we should keep like a separation between reading skills in general, context clue skills, but then there's also the specific determining multiple meanings.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So we'll split up the, have two different
questions today.
objectives for,
That teak, and that teak is also in week 3, so should we, are we going to be focusing on both teaks from week 2, or?
Well, we need to decide, but I feel like we should.
Okay, just FYI, 3.4C, not
Yeah.
to say that's not important. There, over the past 3 years, there's only been one question asked on that. And basically says which word is a synonym for this word, or which of these is a synonym for this word used in a sentence.
Right, and see, that's where us teaching that teak is just to improve their reading ability overall. You know what I mean? It's so that they're better readers overall. But 3.4B is kind of its own monster when it comes to context clues.
It's all your vocabulary.
there's a lot.
So,
This is something though we need to be touching on every single day. It's not just,
well, and that's where having like in a station, like a dictionary skills
Yeah,
station,
absolutely.
where they're practicing that. Well, and we need to look into activities that just deal with homographs as a station too. Something that they're just practicing.
and in guided reading, the kids don't get a word. We'll be looking to examine the clues and just try to figure it out. It should be just part of being a good reader.
There's one that the dictionary.
If we're gonna write another objective though, I think it needs to have to do with
3.84B, right?
3.5B.
5. Oh, paraphrasing. Oh my
Because
goodness.
these are
yeah.
still myths and
Oh, we already wrote this one. It's the same.
3.5B.
We wrote that one together.
B.
Oh, Oh, settings, sorry.
Just because it has to do with
Mhm.
the,
Yeah.
I don't know, what do y'all think? When are we gonna compare the settings?
That's my question.
We
because
also
there's
have
six
it-
weeks
Let's do
for
that
1 week.
on week
Well, the-
3.
That's where, and that's what we were kind of talking about yesterday too. So making inferences, you're just doing that every day.
Mhm.
And that's why we have so many teaks in ELAR.
Mhm.
That when you're making inferences,
Smart.
when you're doing your mini lesson, when you're reading out loud with the kids, you're making you're kind of trying to make sure to hit on it. When they're reading their independent reading time, they maybe have a graphic organizer where they're practicing making inferences. You know, the text evidence plus the inference, or what is it? Schema. Text evidence plus schema equals inference. So they're here, but it doesn't mean you're going to have a mini lesson for each one of them. Because we've explicitly taught already 3.4B has already been specifically taught, explicitly taught. 3.4C has already been explicitly taught. 19D has been explicitly taught. Really 3.8B has been explicitly taught, but that's kind of like our second. Because the way I see it, 3.5B, this is our unit teak.
Okay.
This
Yeah.
is our unit teak for the week.
5A and 5B.
3.8B is a unit teak, but it's one that we will have taught this week, and it's one that we will continue teaching in week 3, because we're going to constantly talk about sequencing and summarizing the fables that we're reading.
And that's a good one too.
I think
Paraphrasing the themes, that's kind of an underlying for week 2, because we will have done it, but it's still something that's going to be happening. And then 3.5B. So really, it's these 3
Okay.
teaks here.
So the mini lessons are going to be focused on those three.
These three.
I think if we, in 3.8B, right, yeah, 3.8B, so if we focus on 3.8B, wait a minute, I'm confused. There's 2 different 3.8Bs?
One
It's
is
probably just
readiness.
labeled wrong.
Oh.
I'm
Interaction
thinking
of
the top
characters.
character interaction.
Including the relationships
Uh-huh.
and the changes
Oh,
they
that's so
undergo.
many. That's another one. That's a 4th one that really should be a focus. But this unit is kind of like that, because there's,
Yeah, I think character interactions
Or the genre, the terms.
I mean, we're gonna continue looking at theme because we started it this week, the kids really need to understand it's important. So we continue with theme next week, plus we're going to look at the characters. I mean, really character changed. A lot of it, we can look at it in the context of how that, you know, how the, like basically the boy who cried wolf, how did he change? The theme is blah, 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 and therefore he learned a lesson. His change is from the beginning to the end. The theme will
Well, yeah,
actually lend itself to that teak.
well,
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think that we need to think about guided reading and how we're doing this in our guided reading, because in a 10-15 minute mini lesson, we're not going to be teaching 4 teaks well.
No.
Explicitly teaching them well. So we need to think about how we're using that also in guided reading, and because especially the interaction of characters, because every book, any fiction story has characters, whether they're animals or humans.
This goes really hand in hand with the theme, because the characters, I mean, the interaction, the theme basically you learn the lesson through the character interactions, and the character change happens because of a theme.
Right, but instead of feeling like we have to do it all in our 10-minute mini lesson, we need to just think about when we're planning our guided reading also, so it doesn't feel like so heavy. So in your guided reading plans, make sure that you're doing these 2, which obviously one of them has the wrong number on it. I'm going to find out which one. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter right now. These 2 standards. Week 3, we don't have any new ones being added here.
I think comparing and contrasting the settings and myths and traditional folk tales, I would move that to week 3.
Okay.
And we'll still revisit the theme, still, you know, but our main focus will be comparing so that's just looking at that one teak and revisiting all the others.
Okay, so for week 2, we're really going to focus on character interaction and continue focusing on finding the theme and sequencing and summarizing.
How about
main events.
context clues? Where's that gonna fall? Where are we gonna?
We
have
have
First
in
inspiration.
station.
in stations, okay.
What
that's
if we
good.
divide the teaks, like week 1, week 2, we focus on like 1 or 2 teaks,
But there's
And
only
then-
one more week, and
and
there's
then
like
the 3rd week we
6
focus on the other, you know how we had said that there are 3 teaks that we need to focus on? For like the mini lessons? For
Yes.
example, 3.8B, that could be week 2, we can focus the whole week on that one.
Yes,
and then
that's what we
borrow the
were
rest,
saying.
Yeah.
And then week 3 we'll focus on,
The setting. Yes,
Right,
that's pretty much how
Yeah.
it's broken down.
Yeah. And the character one, we're gonna really, that's gonna be our main focus, but we're going to look at it through the context of theme. Like, how is theme actually affecting, how is it all playing out, you know? Like the boy who cried wolf, he started, he was being silly, he was, people, he was calling the people, help, help, and they were running to him, and then at the end, he discovered that, lying does not pay off or whatever, so it shows how he changed, but it also shows the theme, and it kind of goes hand in hand. So yeah, those 2 teaks will support each other nicely.
I was going to change the colors, but
But yeah, you're right, the content is something that, through stations or just, independent practice.
it is. And that's the difference between ELAR and math.
Yeah.
These standards are
When you,
heavy.
Ms.
They are.
Wiseman, when you put in something in the center, is because you already
Taught it.
We've taught it, it's
Okay.
like,
Yeah.
and also honestly.
Yeah, we spent a whole week on context clues, and dictionary skills were part of that. And then after we did that, we all kind of
Right.
We
put
did
it
it
into our
twice.
station.
We actually did it, we actually explicitly taught it 2 times. I mean, they were in the plans twice.
When we started the
So they have this.
Yeah.
I'm over reading. Writing. Well, waiting for something embarrassing to pop up here.
Nothing yet.
Yeah, no, there won't be. I didn't really use my computer over the break. That's not embarrassing, that's for school. Not pleasure. The pig and the cookie. Alright, so I think that we definitely need to decide how we're going to teach those standards.
Are
Do you have
we
any
talking about
questions?
the writing or the reading?
Well, I was going to go back to reading just to make sure we're
yeah,
all
yeah, we're good.
okay.
We're good.
I was thinking writing, but let's do math first, and then. So you just shared that with me, right, Belinda?
Yes.
We'll,
Yeah.
We'll refine it.
we'll refine that one. There it is.
Vanessa, we had talked about how, I asked Misty Young, because I just kind of chunk them together, and she gave us that pacing guide, that email for week by week, and what we wanted to change is, we're starting this week with 3.3A, which is really kind of identifying the fractions, and we're doing vocab and fraction strips this week. Then the following week, it has it doing number lines, but we wanted to,
Math?
we thought we would go to unit
No, I don't
fractions,
know.
because that sounds like it goes together, like
Let me put it
a unit fraction, and then do number lines, because it seems like we're introducing, there's different ways, there's the number lines, there's the parts of a whole, so we thought we would do 3.3A and 3.3C, which 3.3C is they're expected to explain that a unit fraction,
So it's going from parts of a whole in the unit fraction, we're going from the end of this week into the beginning of next week, just to kind of get it, and then also the unit fraction. So we're combining those 2 for this week, or one of them this week, and then going into next week.
because one of our vocabulary words that we're gonna address this week is unit fractions, and we thought we would just roll into that, continue with that, and then the following week do the number lines. She has next week's going into the number lines, so we were just thinking, and we've got it up there, that might make sense to combine those two next week, finish up, because we had a short week this week, and then go into unit fractions, and then the following week we would do 3.3B, which is actually demonstrating it on a number line.
Right.
Does that make sense to you? or-
Yeah, that makes sense. The main reason I think the only reason that they have it as a number line there is because you don't wanna just think of it as a separate entity, as like a number line. You wanna see the whole numbers on a number line, so you know when you're representing it as part of a whole.
Mhm.
That's why they have it next, because it kinda goes with what you're just doing with a part of a whole, whether it's a,
Okay,
you
so
see
do
what I
you,
mean?
you think it would be better to just move it?
No, I mean, if you feel, I don't think it's really that big of a deal if you teach the unit fractions with 3.3A
Okay,
and then do 3.3B,
okay,
because if you think about it, you only have 4 days
right,
this week and then the next week. So you're planning on doing the number line on week 3?
right,
Yes,
that would be 3.3.
yeah, so it'd just be right after what were the unit fraction, so going into,
Yeah, I mean, I don't
they're
think
all
it's,
related,
they're all, like, that's
so
what I'm
it's
saying,
just
they're all
splitting
related.
it up by,
The only thing is, like, when you're teaching, you wanna, when you're mapping out the way you're presenting it, remember the big foundation is that piece of, it's part of a
it's
whole.
part of a whole.
And sometimes, some kids can't see it when you give them like an object or a shape. Sometimes kids see numbers linear, and if they're seeing it as, this is a whole number, and, you know, they might grab it a little bit better, so just keep that in mind. Just because you're switching it, doesn't mean that when you're teaching 3.3A, and you have one kiddo that is still not understanding, or you can't really explain it to you that it's part of a whole, you can show him the number line, you know what I mean? And then they might see it better that way. That doesn't mean that, you know, you can't teach it that week, or, you see what I mean?
Yeah,
So just keep that in mind, that you're going to get to the number line, but if you need it while you're teaching 3.3A,
Mhm.
you could always introduce it.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, cause they're separate teaks, cause they want you to, but they all go hand in hand, like you're saying, so I think you're fine switching those
Okay.
around.
And we kind of want to work with everybody on kind of tweaking those, we just kind of put those in, I can identify and create fractions between 0 and 1, because, and sometimes I forget because I was in 4th grade, that we're not going past 1, it's just between 0 and 1. By creating and adding unit fractions with paint strips,
or just more than
Or-
a whole, cause we are, I mean, you
or
can
pizza
see it in any
pieces.
whole.
in circles, you know, cut up pizza shapes and stuff like that. So maybe we need to say with graphic organizers instead of being specific paint strips, because we might be breaking it up with like a pizza where they add the pieces of the pizza up. So we're trying,
Can we say models instead of paint strips?
There we go.
models,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes,
We just
because
couldn't
the
think-
teak encompasses all of those models.
Right.
'Cause
Oh,
it's
that's
real-
right.
you do
I
it,
forgot.
No, you're already in there.
Okay,
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
there you go. Okay, and we're kind of gonna, we also, probably later in the week, because we also want them to identify them too. You know, we're gonna create those and we're gonna want to identify the parts of the unit fraction, so, and I'm kind of redundant in there, I said, each part of a whole, but like what I was telling them today, you know, there has to be a number to recognize, like somebody had a birthday today and it was perfect, cause they were exactly 9 years old. But everybody was a little more than 8, but not yet 9. So we're trying to get that concept that it's those numbers that you don't know what to call them because they're kind of fuzzy, they're kind of in between, and so recognize that each part of a whole is one unit fraction of an object. I just put that in there, it's kind of redundant, but we're gonna wanna label those parts too, which
We were trying to do, because we have 2 teaks, so whether it was, you know, having a learning objective for both, that's what we were trying to, whether we do that, or 2 separate ones, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I would keep it separate, only
Okay.
because it's, I would keep it, I would just keep it separate, because like when you're doing when you, like say tomorrow, you might focus just on this part, and then once you introduce it as one objective, and then the next day you do the other objective, and then like maybe Friday or Thursday, you can have both of them up there, because they both have seen them separately, separately, and but I mean, I think you're fine with leaving it separate.
Can we say that I can recognize that fractions are part of a whole, and then by blah blah blah, because
right, it
it's
is.
confusing.
Yeah, it was, we left it so that way we can
I
tweak
can
it.
recognize that fractions are part of a whole by,
that what you were saying?
Yeah, but you deleted the by part, what did it say by what?
Just go back.
By,
Go undo. Undo.
and how do I, okay. By adding parts and labeling them on a graphic.
So, what I wanna make sure, because the unit fraction is one, it's just one
Period.
quantity,
I know.
so it's 1 over something, it's 1 over the denominator. So, when we're doing these graphic organizers, it's gonna be 1/5, well, we're not doing fifths, but 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3. It's never gonna be 2/3 plus 1/3 in third grade, or 4/3.
Yeah.
Okay, will we compare them that way, but are we gonna add them that way?
I think she was saying yeah to you.
Yeah, I wasn't,
No.
sorry.
No, I wanted to make sure, because it says we're adding unit fractions, and that's only 1 over the denominator, so it's not like 2/8 plus 1/8 plus 3/8, I mean, we're not gonna add them up that way, right?
It's just one.
It's just
I
one.
don't, I mean, we can pull the star up real quick and
It's
look at
just
how
one.
it's done.
Okay.
Because I remember, actually, I
Okay,
found
just
it
one.
2
Do
we
years
wanna
ago.
look at it?
It was just one.
Yeah, pull it up real quick.
Just because when we do the paint strips, we could do it in different ways, we could do 2/8 plus 1/8 plus 3/8, you know, or we can just do 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8, you know, all the way up to equals 8/8.
I don't think it'd be bad showing them either way.
Both ways.
There you go.
Or make them find the one that equals
One
to.
at a time.
Yeah.
So put the equal, what other fractions would equal?
Okay, so figuring
Keep
out the
going,
shaded
it's
part,
not
and then
that
I
one.
think,
They're comparing.
Just create the whole adding the parts and labeling them.
Just, yeah, maybe labeling them,
I would get, yeah, done.
okay.
Okay, this is representing on a number line.
See, and it's between 1 and 0, I mean, it's, yeah,
0
it's
and
between
1.
0 and
So
1.
this one? That one? No, it's not.
Okay.
Sandra just added it.
That's all. Yeah, hang up this.
Okay,
Sentence of addition and subtraction fractions with equal denominators using objects and.
This isn't adding though. This is comparing a third to a fourth.
right, now when we
Yeah.
compare, we're gonna have different numerators.
Yeah.
But I think when we're adding, it's just 1.
It has to be the same.
It's just one denominator.
Yeah.
One
It's
denominator,
not
right?
unit, it's by the
Right.
unit.
Okay.
We're gonna just start adding like the same.
so there's a fraction.
So
Yeah,
that's
but
the
I-
same
denominator.
same
So
way.
I'm-
Equivalent.
I'm just thinking in my head, I'm trying to read to that part, but I'm thinking out loud, and I'm just gonna say what I'm thinking. That is a supporting standard,
Mhm.
so when you remember, you're thinking of, it's gonna support something bigger than that, whether it be in third grade or fourth grade.
Right,
Because once they identify that unit and understand how to put 2 units together and having that as a unit, that's gonna lead them to do, like if they're doing 1/8 plus 1/8, it's gonna lead them to go 3/8 plus 1/8. So that's what it's supporting, so I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, even if it doesn't show it here, like, for example, no, that one's not one of them.
I left
I
it
don't-
here because
I don't think,
it looks like a tricky question. I thought it would be
yeah,
good for
and
you.
I don't think it's good, they're gonna only use unit fractions if they're adding them together, like they could have a pictorial and they could have
okay.
2/8
Because the
here,
pictorial is
and then there's
different.
another one that's gonna have 1/8.
What's the
But
other
if they
option?
understand how to connect it
Mhm.
to that, cause I mean, that's the whole reason to have a supporting versus a readiness.
Mhm.
So you're supporting, you're building that foundation of adding and looking at it as a unit, but that doesn't mean that they can't add another fraction. They're just not gonna add it all the way like in
most of
mixed numbers or, you know,
And most
or
of the
proper
times,
fractions.
Because
most
on
of the
this
times
test,
in
there aren't
class,
any
they
questions.
use
with
the
it.
model, when they're
Yes.
gonna use those improper fractions, they use the model.
Right, and they do,
Yeah, and they
That's
won't
what
do
I've seen.
improper in
It's
No,
not even
no.
improper.
but that's what I'm saying, like, obviously that's not part of that, that teak is really adding.
Comparing, sorry.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
That question, the previous
that
one
one
with
that
the
you had that
granola
confused?
bars, what throws off the kids
You
is
had
they're
one right there.
expecting fractions to be
It was
part
one.
of a whole,
well, that,
not part of a group.
It's
But it could be part of
comparison.
a set
And we're
too.
gonna-
Of a set, we
Yeah.
need to really make
Look at
sure
that
they
one right
understand
and
that.
that's one of the things
So
some
you
of them
have the same denominator.
And that's part of
Part
like
of
the
a group.
definitions and all that going through,
And it's
like the
only
graphic
that
or
numerator.
anchor charts.
But then the
and
group
everything.
becomes a whole group. our
Yes,
whole set.
Because it's the
So
same
even
unit, they
doing like
use in the
Greeks
same
and
unit,
stuff, showing
right.
them
Yeah, they're just
Greeks
comparing
that
them, though.
they're
Exactly.
part of that set.
That's the way how they do.
The other thing we wanted to ask, when she sent that back to us, she has 3.41, and we didn't have time to look it up on Star, and 3.7A,
3.4I.
oh, I, and they're not on the IFD. So we need to see what that is that we're supposed to be teaching, because it's not on here, and why did she?
So we need
I
to-
circled it for some reason, 3.7A, I circled it. before I came in
3.7A
here.
and then 3.4I, I guess.
Well,
What are they?
Just, we'll get to, let me look
We
for
just
them
wanna make
here.
sure we have
Yeah,
time to
look,
fit
we don't
them
need them for
in.
next week, but if you can find out and then just let us know.
Yeah.
Misty, what was her name?
Misty Young,
Yeah, 3.4I and 3.7A. She has them as
Yeah, 'cause see,
supporting.
in 3.7A, she has it for the first week. That's why I circled it too. Did you see how she has it
Yeah,
for
and
January
we-
1st?
and so it's not in her
Here,
IFD.
If this would load up. That goes okay, 3.4I. It is determine if a number is even or odd using divisibility rules. So it's still part of 3.4, your number and operations, the student applies mathematical process standards to develop and use strategies and methods for whole number computations in order to solve problems with efficiency and accuracy. The student is expected to determine if a number is even or odd using divisibility
We
rules.
just did that.
I don't understand why it's in fractions though.
Spiral.
No, like if you're looking, here, let me see if I can find out.
I definitely get like for division
me
and
it's-
things like
To
that.
me, this whole teak is really about, when you're dividing something, you see patterns, when you're decomposing and composing, you see halves, like when you're looking at numbers and you're doing the, what do you call them, equal numbers and you're putting them, doubles, when you're doing doubles, like if you have a half and another half, so like if you're looking at a fraction, and you see, like you have, like even if it's a pictorial, they'll have 3/6. They might not have it and they might not look exactly like the half, but they have to understand that 6 divided by 3 is a half, it's still, you see what I mean? So that's why they have that teak in the fractions,
Gotcha.
because you're gonna have problems that are going to show you, and then they started that off, I can't even talk today for some reason, they started that off in second grade, where they're going to have like a pictorial and it'll have like a fourth, 2/4 highlighted, and then they'll have an eighth, pies broken up into eighths, and then they'll have 4 colored, and they'll ask you, what, are they the same, they're the same, or they're not the same, or they're, they do it all in word, but if they understand that 8 divided by 4 is half, and, 4 divided by 2 is half, so that's why that divisibility
Okay.
part goes in there.
So we're, okay.
So I don't think you have to like do an objective by itself to do that, but when you're talking about, when you get to like, say for example, 3.3, B and A, like A, B, and C, those first part of the weeks, you're gonna be comparing them, right? You're gonna be comparing them, so that's, when that teak goes in that area, because in order to compare, you have to know that, the division, you have to have that numeracy background.
Okay.
That's
Have to,
an A. And then what's what is that 3.7A that you were just,
3.7, no, that's 3.4I.
and then with 3.7A,
3.7A, I circled that, I didn't write anything down, I'm sorry. Oh, here it is, okay. So that's represent fractions of halves, fourths, and eighths as distances from 0 on a number line.
So
So it's
number
basically
line.
the number line. So when you're going over, 3.3B, you wanna look at those benchmarks,
okay.
cause that's really what it
Is it
is,
under
and
euphoria?
your benchmarks are easy, cause they're in third grade,
Well,
you
you
don't
have
have to
to
know all
go
the others.
each one,
Okay,
like for example.
we'll put that in there.
3.7.
Okay, thank you. We just wanted to clarify that,
No,
to
yeah,
make sure we
absolutely.
covered them, because they didn't have them in here.
Yeah, because, that the one that we just went over, 3.4I, also like when you're on that number line, which is the 3.7A, you're gonna have a number from 0 to 1, and then if you divide that 0 to 1 into eighths, then right in the half is going to be 4 eighths. So and that's really, really important, because if they really truly understand numbers and then they get that piece, that's gonna be so much easier for them to do equivalent fractions and all the stuff they're going to do in 4th and 5th grade.
Yeah.
So
I'm just gonna put Q3DA.
And
that's why I have it there.
our sneak peek, remember, she made a point of showing the fractions on a number line and then taking,
So what
she
was-
boxed in the number line to turn it into a rectangle
Mm-hmm.
for them to.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of little things that you wanna remember, like, because you guys are only doing a whole, that's a great idea, but I'll always, I would get them in a habit of circling the whole number, so that, and having them verbalize and say, hey, what do you see on this number line, what are you observing, what do you see, well, I know it's a whole, how do you know, and then you could box it in, but circle the zeros, or circle the 1, and then have them, make sure that they understand that's a whole. So when they're doing that fraction, don't just say, what fraction is it, or they see a picture, they'll say, oh, that's 1/4. Hey, what does that mean? That's 1/4 of what? That's 1/4 of the whole circle, that's 1/4 of the whole rectangle. It's 1/4 of the whole set, or class, or, just have them, because even though it's so simple to have them say it, if you just keep repeating and say, well, how did you know that? What part of what? What is it, a part of a monkey? What is it? Like, and having them use that is really a whole. So it's really connects with them.
Okay.
Senior
All
moment,
right.
Yeah, with time.
Now, yeah, I know it's time.
No,
It goes with time too.
like,
Oh, I
a whole
know,
hour.
yes, with the
Yeah.
block.
And that's all
We're gonna
about
do that.
divisibility
February
too,
21,
because you have a
Quarter of
clock
a
is a
mile.
circle,
Yeah, today one of the kids said
half
it's like
30.
division, I was
Yeah,
like,